So let's talk controversy. Marvel has so many characters in their universe at this point that it's bound to happen that some characters will cause some controversy and get them into hot water. But these characters are different. These are characters who either caused such an uproar with the fans and the community that Marvel had to go make a change, or they're still polarizing to the fans to this day, with some people loving these characters, some people hating them, but both recognizing the controversial nature of the character. So let's get into the characters who have caused Marvel a whole bunch of problems and look at the top 5 most controversial characters in Marvel's history. Starting with number 5, we have Deadpool. Now, I've talked about Deadpool in the past and how I'm not a huge fan of the character, but it's not just me and it's not just for the reasons that I've mentioned. Deadpool, for a long time, including recently, has been a pretty controversial character and pretty polarizing for the fans. If we go back to the very inception of the character, a lot of people think that Deadpool is a ripoff of the DC Comics character Deathstroke. And if you look at them side by side, they do sort of have a similar style about them. They're a similar archetype of character, similar origins, and of course the name. Deathstroke's name is Slade Wilson, and Deadpool's name is Wade Wilson. It seems like an obvious parody. However, the creator of Deadpool, Rob Liefeld, has continuously stated that it is not a parody, it is not a ripoff of the character, and that these similarities are either purely coincidental or have some innocent explanation. And look, Marvel and DC have ripped off characters from each other for years. I don't think that's a huge issue for the fans, but I think the issue is the fact that it seems like such a blatant ripoff, and yet the creator of the character refuses to acknowledge it. And it doesn't help that Liefeld has been accused of ripping off other characters in the past. But beyond this, Deadpool's nature as a character has also caused some controversy, with him being so over-the-top, inappropriate, violent, dealing with sexual content, pretty much just being an extreme R-rated character. And if you remember, whenever the Deadpool movie first came out in 2016, there was quite a bit of backlash from fans who did not know what they were getting into, usually parents, right, who took their kids to go see a superhero movie and were surprised to find out that the R-rated movie was in fact R-rated. And as recently as Deadpool and Wolverine, you saw similar things where people were still complaining about how crass and violent and everything the movie turned out to be.
I am Marvel Jesus.
That was true of the comics as well. And some people think that it's a step too far, that it's too violent, it's too over the top. Personally, I don't think that necessarily. I think he's just not funny. And other characters defend the character for being something different and unique and sort of a fresh take on what a superhero comic book character is. Not always heroic and stoic and all these things, but being pretty goofy, violent, and inappropriate. Moving on to number 4, we have the Sentry. Now, Sentry is one of those characters that has pretty much fallen off the map when it comes to Marvel Comics. He's had a few good series here and there, a few good appearances in the comics overall, but he's a character that I think was expected by Marvel to take off, and he never really did. In fact, a lot of people had problems with the character, and I'm sure whenever the Thunderbolts come out and Sentry makes his on-screen debut, some of these complaints may rise again. And the first of which is also a rip-off accusation where Sentry is way too close to being a copy of Superman or Miracle Man, sort of that archetype of character. Sentry has often been called like the Superman of Marvel Comics. Though he is different and he does have his own unique features about him, the similarities between the two are very clear. But that's not the main point. The main point comes down to two things. First is how he was introduced into the comics. If you don't know, the whole deal with Sentry is he is this Superman tier character, extremely powerful, but he has sort of this mental illness about him and is very unstable, and you combine that with the fact that he has low-level reality warping, it can lead to some weird things, which was shown off during his character introduction. He shows up in the Marvel Universe, and he is like the greatest hero of all time. Everybody loves him. He's the best ever. We all just forgot that he existed because of his low-level reality warping. He made everybody forget that he existed. But now that everybody remembers, they all remember how great he was and that he's the best ever and everybody loves him. It was sort of a forced popularity and sort of a forced existence into the current ongoing Marvel Universe. That combined with the fact that his existence retconned certain characters like Rogue, people were not a huge fan of that introduction. Also, the main thing that people didn't like about him was that his mental health showcase wasn't really handled well. His mental health issues are just a crutch for the character. It's holding him back. He never goes and gets help or anything like that. And look, I think the discussion of like realistically depicting mental health in our mediums is pretty stupid. Not everything needs like a realistic panic attack or something like that. But I can understand whenever a mental disability is one of the main features of the character, maybe handling it a little bit differently could have been wise. At the same time, if you make him like deal with his mental issues and get over it, then the whole concept of the character pretty much goes out the window. So overall, it just kind of seemed like a bad choice from Marvel, and that's probably one reason why the character is not really that popular. But real quick, I do want to mention that I am crowdfunding my third graphic novel, Cardinal Starstruck, on Indiegogo. It's got great story, great art, it's action-packed. Please do follow the link in the description to check out the Indiegogo page. Look through all the information about the campaign and the book itself, and if it interests you, please do consider backing. I put a lot into this book. I think it's really great, and I think that you will really enjoy it as well. So again, please follow that link, and I appreciate any support. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, we have Iron Man. At this point in time, he's one of the most popular superheroes of all time, thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But in the comics and even in the movies, he is one of the most flawed heroes that Marvel has to offer. He's done a lot of bad over the years. He's got a terrible ego problem. He's extremely arrogant. He's got substance abuse issues, doesn't have the best relationship with women, and has had many controversial moments in the comics, to being a part of the Ultron issue, to sending Hulk out into space during the Planet Hulk storyline, to of course most famously and probably most polarizing and damaging for the character was the Civil War storyline. Splitting the Marvel Universe in two and being in favor of the Superhero Registration Act made him a very unpopular character and very unliked. But again, that was sort of his personality. People didn't really like him. He was a jerk. He was arrogant. He wanted to get his way. And all of that sort of manifested through the Civil War story. And his reputation only recovered because of the MCU, if you ask me. Of course, many people would point to all of that about Iron Man and say that's what makes him a great character, and that's what makes him an interesting character, that despite his flaws, he can still be a hero, where the other side says he doesn't deserve to be a hero because of his flaws, and that he has lost any goodwill that he had garnered over the years. There was also that interesting, forgotten memory hold storyline, The Crossing, where it turns out that Iron Man was secretly an agent for Kang the whole time and betrayed the Avengers. It was pretty much Iron Man's Hail Hydra moment that Captain America had in 2017. That was actually so stupid and so ridiculous that they did just end up pretty much just saying, yeah, that was stupid, let's try and forget about that. But it is in line with what we're talking about here, about him being a very flawed character. He is not your typical superhero character you want to look up to and emulate and be like Captain America or Superman or somebody like that. He does have quite a lot of issues, but that is sort of where Marvel thrives, I feel like. And so you have many people who defend and love the character, which does make him polarizing. And some of those early stories where he was dealing with substance abuse, those were things that editors and the top brass didn't want to publish because it was a controversial topic, but they did it anyway. So it seems like Iron Man's just been a catalyst for controversy for some time now. Moving on to number 2, we have Nick Fury. And I want to talk about both versions of Nick Fury here, starting with the original Nick Fury, the white Nick Fury, the Howling Commando, World War II veteran character that I'm actually a huge fan of. Now, if you're a new comic book fan, you may not even know that this character exists. If you've only seen the Marvel movies, you may not know that there was a different version of Nick Fury before the Sam Jackson version that we have now, but there was. And he was awesome. But he was maybe a little bit too awesome, right? So this version was very much like a man's man type of character. The gritty, cigar-smoking, eye-patch-wearing, military badass type of guy. He was pretty unfiltered. People today would call him toxic, right? He'd call people retard and stuff like that. And he was at times very violent. And you may be rolling your eyes like, oh, is the comic book violence too much? Well, for some people it was, because there was going to be a Nick Fury movie starring George Clooney, but Clooney dropped out of the movie after seeing how violent some of the Nick Fury comics were. So it actually was quite a big issue. But I think that the original Nick Fury was a badass. I think he was awesome, but obviously Marvel thought that he was maybe a step too far, and they wanted to get rid of him. And they definitely wanted a black Nick Fury. And they definitely wanted it to be Sam Jackson. If you look at where the black Nick Fury originated from, the Ultimates universe, the character there was modeled after Sam Jackson. They wanted Samuel Jackson to play him in a movie. And eventually they actually did get that right, obviously. Which was yet again a controversial move. People liked the original Nick Fury, especially comic book fans who had been reading for some time. They didn't want to see their character swapped. And it started that era of swapping a typical white male character with something else that's not white or not male, that we've seen quite a bit in the 2010s era of Marvel Comics. But if you look at discussions around the time online, there typically was this solace that like, well, at least we still have Nick Fury in the comics, hey, it's just in the movies, the comics are still the same. And then of course he gets replaced in the comics, and the original white Nick Fury gets chained to the moon and is now pretty much a lost, forgot about character that it seems like Marvel has really tried to bury. So however you try to slice it, with either the original Nick Fury or the Sam Jackson era Nick Fury, the character has caused some controversy and has polarized the fans. And the only reason the controversy has died down at all or has gone away in any degree is because Marvel has clearly made their choice, that they are abandoning the original Nick Fury that helped build Marvel Comics as we know it, in favor of the more marketable and safe Sam Jackson version. Now, before I get to the number one, I do have a few honorable mentions I want to talk about. First, I want to talk about Purple Man, the once Daredevil and then Jessica Jones villain. This character is not exactly controversial in the same way where you have some people who defend the character and some people who hate the character. He's a pretty hated villain. The controversy is more of what he does, taking control of people to do heinous things. But in particular, of course, it's sort of the sexual crimes he commits against people like Jessica Jones. That was a pretty infamous moment for her character. Next is Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. This is a character that a lot of people feel is forced and sort of a diversity hire. She's like the first Muslim superhero, even though that's not true. And she just seems to be an overall political character that a lot of people don't really like. Some people love the character and defend the character, but like if you look at her comic book sales, pretty much every single comic series she's ever had has failed, and the sales have been terrible. You look at her Marvel TV show, because of course she got pushed into the MCU. It did very bad. The movie she was in did very bad. She seems to be a clearly unpopular character that Marvel will not let go of. And finally, this one's kind of cheating. I want to talk about the Hydra Captain America. This is more of a controversial storyline, but the character brought about maybe the greatest fan polarization I've ever seen in the 2017 Secret Empire storyline, where it was revealed that Captain America was really a Hydra agent this whole time. Some people thought it was a pretty cool reveal. A lot of people did not. There was a ton of heated discourse in the comic book community during this time, and was without a doubt one of the most controversial moments from Marvel history. But again, it's more the storyline as a whole than just specifically that Captain America character. Now, moving on to number one, without a doubt, the most controversial character in all of Marvel Comics has to be the Punisher. And there's been many controversies concerning the Punisher over the years, including just like last year or this year. But clearly, the Punisher is one of those characters where if Marvel could get rid of them, they absolutely would, but he's just too popular, so they can't. And the main issue, and you can look this up anywhere for years now, the main issue has been that the quote-unquote wrong people like the Punisher. And the discourse pretty much goes, hey, these people over here, usually right-wing conservative people, they like the Punisher. Well, they just don't understand what the character's about. And the right-wing or conservative people will say, actually, I like the Punisher because I know what the character's like. You don't understand what the character's about. And you'll see police officers who have Punisher stickers on their car, and people will freak out about that. They even addressed that in the comics. But it's been a years-long discussion about how the wrong people idolize the Punisher and the wrong people like the Punisher. And like I said, they've even tried to address that in the comics themselves, especially the police thing, where they're like, cops shouldn't idolize the Punisher. The Punisher represents a breakdown of the system and, killing without due process. Police shouldn't be idolizing that. And of course, conservatives, they don't get that Punisher's not someone who they should be idolizing. The Punisher would actually hate them. He's just glorifying guns and violence and all the worst parts of vigilantism. Whereas the people who like Punisher just like the idea that, yes, someone's taking the law into their own hands and killing criminals. But it's been an ongoing issue, an ongoing discussion about what the Punisher is supposed to represent, how you're supposed to interpret the character. You can't like him this way, you have to like him this way. If you're part of this group of people, you're not supposed to idolize the Punisher. It's been an issue, and like I said, if Marvel could do away with the character, they totally would, and it seems like they almost tried to do that and kind of have done that in the last couple years. There was a Punisher storyline where they've pretty much stripped the character of everything that made him unique. They changed his logo from the iconic skull to this super ugly, stupid looking logo. They took away his guns and gave him swords. They've tried their best to distance the character from the things that made him popular. Because, like it or not, the Punisher does strike a chord with conservative fans. Or really, any fans who are fed up with the increase in real-world crime and wish there was somebody like that to just step in and clean the problem out, regardless of whatever due process there may be. But Marvel has tried to change that, including the sympathetic origin of the character, because of course, Punisher was out with his family, some criminals shot up the park he was at, killed his family, and that set him on his path of vengeance. Well, in this recent Punisher comic, it was revealed that actually his wife didn't love him, and actually his wife was going to ask for a divorce the whole time, and she actually hates the Punisher. It was a pretty big signal from Marvel that when it came to the Punisher, they were saying, look, we hate that you like this character. We don't want you to read our comics. We don't want you to resonate with this character. Everything you thought about this character, we're stripping away. He's not cool. Guns aren't cool. His skull isn't cool. His family didn't love him. His mission isn't righteous. His mission is selfish. And Punisher actually sucks. They so clearly want to alienate that part of their fan base by doing everything that they can to destroy the character. And of course, fans of the Punisher did not like that, obviously. And Marvel has a bad habit of that. Marvel has a very bad habit of changing or ruining the in-comic characters in order to own or send a message to their fans. Marvel has a very toxic relationship with a lot of their fans. They don't want fans of certain demographics or certain viewpoints or anything like that. They only want specific types of people reading and enjoying their comics, which explains a lot of the changes they've made over the past decade, with Punisher being one of the latest. And now if you look at Punisher comics, they have replaced him. They have a new Punisher type character, and the new Punisher pretty much sucks. He seems to be directly addressing the criticisms of the original character. He's totally gay, essentially. But that will do it for the top 5 most controversial Marvel characters of all time. Please let me know what you thought of this list. Let me know in the comments down below who you think is the most controversial character. Is there anybody that I missed? Anybody you wish I added? Let me know, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.